JKB back with another episode. Today on the show I'm reviewing Metroid Dread. Thank you to Nintendo Canada for the review copy. I do want to give a slight warning at the beginning here. Some of the footage will reveal later parts of the game, so there are spoilers. So if you do not want to see those, just look away and listen to my audio because I will not be spoiling any of the story in this review. Now, of course, I don't want to give away any of this game, but I have to bring up the scope of the story. While you can put the beginning and the end into a timeline in terms of the story cutscenes, and it's not going to really be that long, it is still riveting. It's at a pace that really plays into the gameplay mechanics because you're discovering the story at random as you go through the map. It's really up to you how you want to progress in the story. Do you want to do it quickly? Well, that's probably not possible in this game. Now, at the beginning of the game, within the first couple of hours, you start to see a pattern with the Emmy robots. It seems like you're going to get some of the story progressed after you take one of them out. However, you don't all the time get to see a cutscene after taking one of the Emmy robots out. Now, Emmy robots is a huge part of this game. This is a robot, I don't want to give away anything, but this is a robot that is protecting something on the planet, or maybe it's doing something else, but in saying that, it introduces the stealth mechanics to the Metroid series. Now, there's a lot of gear that you're going to get that actually helps you escape these Emmy sequences. These are sections on the map that are kind of quarantined into their own zone. Now, within these sections, you have to either escape the situation or take Emmy on directly. And what's so amazing about this game, I just want to tell a little story about the AI in this game. At a certain point, you get a weapon upgrade, and you can take out the Emmy robots. And the sequence, I won't give it away, makes it so rewarding, and it's just nail-biting up until the last moment just before you take that final shot to take the robot out. Now, the robot itself can detect you by sound, so there's one stealth ability that turns Samus completely invisible. Now, of course, there's a power bar attached to that. Now, I was in a room with this robot using that ability, and I was standing down a corridor, and I swear I thought I understood the pattern of how that robot would move around the map. However, boy was I wrong, because if you're not paying attention, this robot will appear above you and take you out and scare the living shit out of you while it's doing it. You really never feel safe when you're in the Emmy sections of this map. Not once did I feel like, oh, this will be a breeze. Now, of course, there's sections where it's a lot easier to escape the robot, but in saying that, this is a terrifying creation, and I'm so happy Nintendo wanted to not make a horror game, but sort of introduce literally the term dread into the game, because you really do dread those sections. And when that robot's chasing you, you want to get the hell out of that room. It's not until really later in the game where you get enough confidence to not really take on the robots, but enough confidence to feel like you're kind of safe in the room. But even when you get that gear to feel even safer, you still aren't safe. And this is one of the highlights of the game. They really nailed down the AI and the sense of dread. The game's called Dread for a reason, because you feel dread. You genuinely feel it. And I have to applaud them for that. As for the setting of the game, it is amazing. This is the first Metroid game where I believe you really start out at the bottom of all of the levels, because usually I believe you're going from top down deeper into the base. This one seems the complete opposite, and you're trying to escape the situation. So the setting will go from, cold, icy levels that have their own unique play styles to a lava section where you can't really enter the section without having a certain suit upgrade. You're going to see, vegetation and all sorts of enemy types within these sections. But I want to bring out something that I kind of feel important here, and that is the art design of these settings is unbelievable. You're going to really feel like you're part of the environment, even though it is 2D. It does switch to a 3D perspective a lot of the times during cutscenes and sometimes during the combat, but you really get a sense of depth with how they've designed the backgrounds and the fog effects and the lighting effects. When you're shooting her blaster, her pulse rifle, it deflects the light all over the enemies, the floor, and in the ice sections of the game, you really see that stand out. And it's just an amazing design in terms of its setting. And moving from the setting into the actual level design, this, I think, is the best Metroid game in terms of level design. Is this better than Metroid Prime in my opinion? I'm a Metroid Prime, child. I was working at EB Games when Metroid Prime came out, and it was such a big deal. You guys don't understand unless you were there. I hope you experienced that, but this has the same tone as Metroid Prime, and I honestly feel like it's kind of debatable on which game's better, because they both present a different perspective to the story and the characters and, of course, the gameplay itself. But I would say that this really does feel like a Metroid Prime game. It fits into that world because of that level of depth in the background. So in terms of the setting and the visuals, it is amazing. Now, there's one little negative I have to bring up in terms of the setting and the visuals because it plays into this, but there are slight frame rate dips when you get heavy action on screen. A lot of enemies and explosions are going to really slow it down, just like it did on an NES. You get some slowdown. That, unfortunately, is really, I can reveal now, is really the only issue with this game. And it is enough for me to kind of say it's not a perfect game because of that. Because as you get deeper into the game, you get bigger weapons, bigger explosions, more stuff is happening on screen, you move a lot quicker, so the frame rate does suffer due to that. Now, at the beginning of the game, you get a sort of tutorial little-sized map before you head into the gigantic map, which I'll get into a lot later in the review, but at the beginning of the game, you're introduced to the same mechanics that were in the 3DS, 2DS remake of Metroid 2, I believe it was called Samus Returns. You're going to experience the same gameplay elements from that game, except they're enhanced to, I'm guessing, to their maximum abilities. You have tons of gear in the game that, at the beginning, of course, you have no idea what you're going to get into because, of course, it's a Metroid game where you're going to be collecting your gear. It's kind of a staple of the series. You do that in this game as well. Now, some people I saw online were kind of complaining, like, why don't I have the morph ball a lot sooner? Yeah, this is going to be based on how people play the game. It seems like there is a linear path in terms of the gameplay, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'd have to replay the game completely over to see if it was exactly the same, the way it's revealing the gear to you and how you're actually forced into certain sections. It seems like it might be kind of forcing you into certain sections to find gear. However, it's also leaving it open to go and experience a lot of the secrets. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail of the gear, but you get some amazing abilities. A lot of them are from past games. I feel like once you get midway through this game, which could be about 5 to 6 hours, depending on your playstyle, of course, you start to really see it open up in terms of gameplay, and you feel like a badass right from the start. Just being this character in this game makes you feel like a badass, but when you get some of the stronger gear and the missiles and grappling hook and all of these abilities, yet again, I'm not going to spoil here, you feel like the John Wick of video games, and you're reminded constantly during the boss battles that Samus is one of the most badass characters that Nintendo has ever created. And I totally forgot they had even done this. It reintroduces you to how badass she is, and my god, the gear that you get later in the game and the abilities make her feel like just John Wick. It gets to the point where you're running through a level and you're just taking enemies out, using the grappling hook, turning into a ball and running across the level, bashing through walls. it feels so good to play because of all of the abilities from the gear. It's just amazing. Now, I have to bring this up because it's going to play in kind of the negative aspect here. While I really enjoy the boss battles, and they're varied with amazing patterns and amazing level design based on the, bosses themselves, but moving into the enemy types that you just see randomly on the map, I feel like they're kind of very generic in a way, but don't get me wrong, it fits into the world. It isn't until a little bit later where the difficulty curve of killing them gets a lot higher, I should say. It's a lot harder to take them out. I just feel like the enemies, I don't know. I wish it was a little more, because you spend so much time going around this map and taking out these enemies non-stop. I just wish there was something more to that. They get in your way for the most part as you get deeper into the game because you want this story to conclude. You want to get to the ending. So you're spending a lot of time going over the old areas of the map, uncovering secrets, opening doors, getting into sections you've not seen before. And these little enemies are just sort of in the way. And, the way that they respawn's kind of silly to me as well, because you'll leave a map room and come back in and it's respawned all of them in the same spot that they were, so it's not really changing that up as well. But, that's not a super big negative. I still think the game is incredible, and yes, as you get deeper into the game, the enemies do change and there's tons of variety. I don't know, something about them that I just wish it was more, and I can't really explain that, but yeah, I've seen better enemies in other games. And as for the map, this map is gigantic. You'll be going back and forth between different sections and discovering new secrets. Of course, there's an ability that will really help you with the secrets as you get deeper into the game. But in saying that, this map is, again, a 10 out of 10 in terms of its level design. It's probably going to be the best action platformer, Metroid, quote-unquote, Metroidvania game you will ever play. I don't know how they can top this. I think the only way to go about this would be to make the map even bigger. Now, it's broken up into sections, and these sections have tons of secrets. Even at, 8 hours in, I was only about 33% discovery of each of the sections, so I've still got to go back in there and find extra missiles, because you'll find these secrets around the map that are going to expand your inventory slots for missiles, and of course your power, your energy that she has. You have to upgrade that, because as you get deeper into the game, you'll know right away, yeah, it's very important you go out and look for these energy tanks to expand your power. Lastly, I want to talk about the actual direction of the game, and I'm talking about the director, and I'm talking to the director. These cutscenes that you see after a boss battle or right at the end of a boss battle, I'm not going to spoil this, but this is where you see how badass Samus is, and the animation team should applaud itself. It is so smooth, and you get a sense of her attitude, even though she's in a suit. You can't see her face. Of course you see her face throughout the game. She talks maybe a few times, just like she, grunted in other games, but you really, really get a sense of how badass she is through the animation. There's no other way to do it. She's not blabbing all the time or saying anything really in this game, so it's the only way to get a visual cue of how she's feeling. And yeah, the animation team and the direction of these cutscenes are unbelievable. It made me want a CGI Metroid game, movie, I should say, based on this game. I would watch a movie in 2 seconds if it was directed by the same director. It is amazing. So overall, this game delivers on basically every front. There's only a few things I have to bring up here that are kind of negative to the game, and I can't really escape it, the frame rate being one of them. I really wish that it was a little more smooth as you get deeper into the game, especially when you start to get the better weapons. There's more explosions, more enemies on screen. there's slowdown. There's no way to sort of pad that out and say, oh, it's okay, it's okay. To me, it's really not okay that it's in a game like this, especially a game that's supposed to be so fluid, you know, running through a level, taking out enemies, grappling hooks, and turning into a ball, going into the wall, and all sorts of things. It's supposed to be one fluid motion, and at times, it isn't because of frame rate. So, yeah, unfortunately, I do have to take a little bit of points off of the game. And the other thing is, like I said, the enemy variety, yeah, they look different, but you just shoot them, they die. I mean, it's not, there's something about it, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but as you get deeper into the game, there's this grappling hook that you can also use to attach to an enemy to rip it off the wall. That was the only time I felt like, okay, this is a bit of a change in terms of the gameplay, you know, versus the enemies. So yeah, there's bigger enemies and there's lots of things you can do to kill them. I just feel like it could have been a little bit more in terms of enemy types. Now, in closing though, what's so good about this game? Well, it's going to be the best adventure you go on your Nintendo Switch, and I think some people will debate me on this, but this could be the best Metroid game, period. It's definitely right up there against Metroid Prime in terms of its gameplay because there's so much to uncover here and have fun with, but you also take in a lot of the environments just by visual cues and seeing things in the background, so it's really tied for me on that level. The story is so small in scope, but so powerful, and it reveals certain things that are just amazing. The settings are incredible. There's a nice variation between all of the sections on the map, and it really forces you to go out there and experience all of the map, and especially if you want to get all of the gear. When you start to get this gear, you feel like a badass. Like I said, the enemy types, I wish they were a little bit more varied, and overall the map, 10 out of 10 for that. It's the best designed Metroidvania you will ever play. And the direction overall of this game is unbelievable. When you get up close to one of those robots, it is just unbelievable gameplay. So overall, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. This would have been I would have been able to give it a perfect 10 if it didn't have the frame rate issues and, you know, just the enemies, something about them on the main just level maps. I just wish it was a little more. But a 9.5 out of 10, this is a masterpiece. This is an example of Nintendo taking something that we've seen before and just spinning it into something new and incredible that is full of magic, it is full of atmosphere, it is full of visuals that will blow you away, even though this technology that we're playing on is at least, 5 years old in terms of it being released, but the chips inside are even 2 years older than that. They're doing this on tech that is literally 7 years old. Can you imagine what Nintendo can do on the next iteration of the Switch, which will, let's be honest, basically be a PlayStation 4 in your hands? I can't wait to see just that little bump in graphics will be mind-blowing, especially for the Metroid series. So if you were excited for this game, be excited. It is incredible, and I'll see you in the next episode of JKB.